Refinances are a great way for you to hack your debt and access your growing home equity. Now, beyond saving a lot of money, they can actually be a great way to access capital to build your long-term wealth. So in this video, we're going to go through some real life client case studies where they leveled up big time using refinancing. Hold up. Refinances are a great way for you to hack your debt because, of course, when you're up for renewal, you can always actually change your mortgage or get more money from refinances from your home equity at a lower rate, which is fantastic. Of course, if you have credit card debt and just debt in general that charges you a much higher interest, 10, 20% versus what could be a 2.5, 3.5 mortgage interest, you're way better off playing some arbitrage and actually consolidating debt. And lastly, if you need capital for renovations or investing in a future investment property, refinances are really a fantastic thing to look into. Now, how a refinance actually works is you're essentially changing the structure of your mortgage, right? So you're not just getting a better rate, but you're pulling out equity and changing the amount that you actually owe on the mortgage, right? So this can be with the same lender or a different lender, and where it differs from a renewal or a transfer is, again, there's a structural change to it. So generally speaking, you'll do this when the actual mortgage term is over, or you can of course break the mortgage if it makes economical sense. You have to of course crunch those numbers, but people will do that. So look, if you're looking to hack some of your debt and or look at investment property, let's actually jump to an example of how you would actually see this in action. What I have with a lot of clients is it's a young family, let's say, and they want to upsize. They've owned a condo for a few years and they're over it, but they also want to maybe keep the condo and have it as an investment property. But the problem is that they can't afford the down payment on what could be $1 million home, right? So they're a bit in a pickle, and this is where refinancing can be really, really handy. With this family that I'm dealing with, okay, they own a $500,000 home. This $500,000 home, they own half of the equity. So 50% is $250,000. They want to refinance and they're getting a better rate. So they're going to move to another lender. The new lender says, hey, awesome, happy to do this. Now I know you want to get a second property, which is worth $1 million, and the family wants to pay 20% deposit to avoid paying the mortgage default insurance, okay? So they can access on the first property up to 80% of the total equity. So if they own 50, they can, borrow another 30. So they're leveraged up to 80% maximum, okay? That's $150,000, right? So they need $200,000 with the new property. So remember, they have savings too. They have $100,000. So the ideal scenario here is that what they do is they actually leverage, instead of leveraging $100,000 on the first property, they'll actually leverage all $150,000 ideally. Then they only need $50,000 from their actual savings account. So now they have 20% on the new property, plus they have $50,000 in their savings for a rainy day or to invest in the market. So it's actually very useful to sometimes use the full equity potential refinance on the first property to access a second property, not pay mortgage default insurance, but also keep money in your savings. So this is an example of family that really use refinancing to their advantage. Another part of this big win is, look, they now own 20% of the new owner-occupied property, which is the $1 million place that they upsized to. And the great thing is that now that they're there, first of all, they got a better rate on the market because of course they refinanced when the rate was a little bit lower than before. And for their peace of mind, they now can manage the whole mortgage under one lender. And lastly, of course, they didn't have to sell their first property, which is now getting its mortgage paid off by a tenant. So they really won by using their equity carefully and strategically. Another really great scenario to leverage refinancing is if you are renovating your home. So firstly, if you have something that's broken and you urgently want to fix it and you need cash, this is of course a perfect solution for it. Again, you can leverage up to 80% of your home value. I mean, if you have a major home remodeling, especially within the kitchen, or especially if you live in Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, these laneway homes are really interesting investments. You need cash, and a refinance can be a really great tool to get that cash and either fix something that's urgently needing fixing, or of course you can raise the value of the property by leveraging cash. If you're a first-time home buyer and you're about to move in somewhere and you know the second you move in, you're probably gonna renovate something, please look at the Purchase Plus Improvements program, where essentially they're gonna cover, within your mortgage, they will cover what could be all or most of your actual renovation costs, but you can only do it right as you move in. So make sure that you plan that out if in fact it is something that you need to do. Some last great examples and a little tidbit with refinancing is this. If you need to consolidate debt, of course, refinancing is really great for this. In fact, there's an awesome story in one of my previous videos, in the alternative lending one, where a young couple, they used refinancing to consolidate what was $80,000 worth of debt. That freed them up to pay, like, I think it was $1,400 less per month, which of course is going to paying debt. And that was really a huge thing for them. And on that note, if you want to free up more cash flow per month instead of having to always automatically pay it to either debt and or your mortgage, you can also extend the amortization period of your mortgage. Usually it's 25 years, but you can extend it usually with a refinance to 30 years, which of course it means that you're paying a bit more interest. But again, if it's very important for you to free up more cash flow, it's just another option when you look at refinancing. So what's your next step? Now, refinances, as you've seen, are personally what I think the best finance hack out there. I mean, we talked about you can use a refinance to potentially buy your next investment property. If you want to level up your home and have a great renovation by leveraging your equity, refinances are fantastic. And of course, assuming you get a better rate, that's just the cherry on top. And lastly, if you have debt that's a bit out of control, you can mitigate it by being smart in the way that you do your refinance. Do you have a question or an opinion? Please, I love reading the comments and of course responding. And listen, if you know someone who has owned a house for a while, hopefully they've been paying their mortgages and they've built up equity in their home, and perhaps they either have some debt problems and they really want to free up cash flow, or of course they're feeling capitalistic and they want to invest in a new property, or of course renovate their place. Por favor, slide this video their way and just make sure that when they get their next investment property, you are on the VIP list for their housewarming. If you learned something new today, and I truly hope you did, and if you think that refinancing will help elevate your life and people around you, then please make sure you're subscribed and also ensure that you're alerted for the next video. We do them every week. And as always, friends, keep leveling up your living.